Alright, and welcome back to AZW Pro Wrestling eFed Action. And what we have here is a tribute match to the late Axel Rotten, who recently passed away. This is the special match I've been talking about in a couple of the last videos. For those of you who are not familiar, here in eFed World, Axel's the one in the black shirt. Ian Rotten is in the white, if you didn't catch it when they first came out. Axel going up top there, but it's hung up on the turnbuckle. Bit of a frog in my throat there. There we go. Cleaned it up a bit. Sorry about that. So, original ECW, when it was really transitioning into its more hardcore persona, from Eastern Championship Wrestling to Extreme Championship Wrestling, one of the feuds that really helped cement that, and in some ways unfortunately pigeonholed both Axel Rotten and ECW in a lot of people's minds, because they never bothered to look past this feud or similar feuds of that early ECW era. And grief, sorry about that. His feud, well, I guess I can tell you a little bit about the history. I'm not an expert by any stretch. I'm mainly doing this just because, you know, one of the brethren of the pro wrestling world has fallen, and I wanted to do a tribute to him because I am familiar with his work to a degree. But he started off doing a British punk persona, Axel Rotten. I think it was a combination of Axl Rose and Johnny Rotten from Sex Pistols, and Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose, of course. And he had an accent that he would use, and you know, the British punk look. And I guess at some point he dropped the accent. I'm not sure why. That really would have helped set him apart from others, I think. But he trained Ian, who kind of entered into the storyline they were doing as his brother, Ian Rotten. And they formed a tag team, and they ended up in ECW after doing some work elsewhere. I don't know that they ever made it to any place like WCW. I'd have to look it up. I'm not sure. But they ended up in ECW, and I can't remember all the specifics. I think there was actually some real bad blood developing between the two of them. They were just... Axel wanted to work solo, or Ian wanted to work solo, but there was just something going on. So they wanted to break up the tag team. So they started feuding with each other, and it turned into one of the most brutal, bloody feuds in pro wrestling's history. And as I said, unfortunately, because of that feud, Axel got pigeonholed, and Ian as well. I'm not sure if he really minded it. I have seen some interviews with Axel, and I think he kind of regretted being stuck in the hardcore freak, you know, category of pro wrestling permanently. So it was one of those double-edged sword things. It was a feud that really cemented that extreme part of the, you know, that phase of ECW's development. But at the same time, for a lot of people, it made ECW the place where they just cut each other up with stuff and beat each other senseless, and there's no real pro wrestling, which is, if anybody that thinks like that had ever actually bothered to watch ECW, they would have known better. But, you know, unfortunately, some people, all they'll ever see is what's on the surface, and for ECW, it was blood. And for Axel, and Ian Rotten's feud, it was a lot of blood. They didn't see that the whole point of it was telling the story of these supposed to be brothers, storyline-wise, that have had this just absolutely horrendous falling out, and now they just hate each other. And, you know, who can hate more deeply than family? You know, nobody can love you as deeply as family. Nobody can hate you as deeply as family because they know you. And a lot of people never looked, never saw that aspect to the whole thing. They just saw the blood. And, the other edge of that sword for Axl and Ian, as I said, was that they got pigeonholed into just doing hardcore stuff, even though, not in the greatest of shape. They're both overweight. But Axl could hit the moves that he needed to hit. Nobody rags on Mick Foley all that much for being overweight pretty much his entire career. But, he became the Mick Foley, and unfortunately, Axl never really got the chance to get that kind of star power going behind his name. Ended up tagging with Balls Mahoney, yet another guy who more than capable of going in the ring with anyone and putting on a damn good match without the hardcore stuff, but got pigeonholed into doing just the hardcore stuff, really. And then, after he left ECW, Axl Rotten, after he left ECW, it was just one stretch of hardcore wrestling in the indies after another, until a few years ago he was in an accident. He got injured and was no longer able to walk without, he had to be in a wheelchair. And I haven't looked into the specifics of his death. As far as I'm concerned, it really doesn't matter. If it was a suicide or drug overdose or just his heart gave out on, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. This is just a tribute match to him because, I thought he deserved it. Sometimes it seems like nobody else ever wanted to do anything for him, so this is the least I can do, is to give him a really good match and bring him and Ian into ACW and let them kind of have one last big blowout match here in E-Fed World that they never really got to have in real life. And maybe many more matches to come, because here in E-Fed World, a wrestler can live forever. So while I've been kind of telling the story and talking about all this, and we've been watching these two just brutalize each other, which is what we expected and what really everybody would want to see them do. Nobody wants to see them go out, shake hands, and do a 30-minute wrestling clinic. Wouldn't be rotten enough. And so they're exchanging blows, grapple attempts, there's an Irish whip. Kind of hard to get into the swing of calling a match play-by-play when I was spending so much time telling backstory and stuff. Well, I guess I can tell some, instead of trying to do play-by-play for a match that is essentially just brutalizing and bloodiness and beating each other up, because that's what you want from this match. I'm not saying that they couldn't do anything else, but history is history. You can't change it. So, very first match with Axl I saw, I want to say it was not the Taipei Death match. It was actually a Balls Mahoney tag team match. I think it was during the period when he and New Jack, or the three of, Balls Mahoney, Axel, New Jack, and Spike were all going up against, I'm not sure if I want to risk saying the name of the group. A particular tag team group in ECW. Well, I've been saying ECW, so it's not like I've not been saying trademarked names. The Dudleys. If you never saw Spike in ECW, he was against the rest of them. He was a good guy. And it was the four of them against the Dudleys, and I don't remember who all was in the match. I want to say it started off as Axel and Balls, the chair swinging freaks, up against the Dudleys, and then it broke down, and New Jack came out, and Spike came out, and it was just one of those great old school ECW free-for-alls that starts off as a match, it goes for a while as a match, and then just totally degenerates into chaos. Kept things lively. That's one of the things I loved about the Exploder Suplex. One of the moves he used to use as a finisher. Axel. So I think that was the first match I ever saw with Axel Rotten. And probably another one would have been the Taipei Death Match, which was based off of some martial arts movie, but they glued glass to the taping on their fists and beat the crap out of each other. That's probably considered to be, by many, the most bloody and brutal match in the history of pro wrestling. Certainly one of the top 5. I mean, their entire feud was just one brutal match after another. Like I said, that was the story they were telling. It was like, some people, all they ever see is the blood, and then it just, to them, it's, they're just cutting each other up and hurting each other for the sake of, shock and awe. I was like, no, sometimes that is just part of the story. You have to learn to tell the difference. Somebody like Martin that does Game of Thrones, he does it just for the shock. That's his trick. I'm not going to go off on a rant on that. It's just, you learn to know or to tell the difference if you're really paying attention to what's going on. So after that, let's see. Unfortunately, Axel was never really given a chance to do anything else. That's really the tragedy of his career. Is that he could have done a lot more, but after the Rottens feud was over with, I don't think Heyman and ECW knew what the hell to do with him. So he just kind of hung out around until he teamed up with Balls, and that was about all there was to it. And then they had some success together as a tag team, feuding with the Dudleys and some others. But again, it was really, every time it would come down to the big ass chair shots and hardcore stuff. And I'm not saying that that's a horrible thing. It's just that I really do feel sorry for Axel that he was never given a chance to do anything else because nobody would let him. Kind of like those kids that, they're kid actors that they do a TV show and, you watch them grow up on a damn show and then they can't get any work after it's over because so many people, including the people that call the shots on hiring, that's all they'll ever be is that character, which isn't fair. But that's just how people tend to think of other people. You know, you see them for so long doing a character, they kind of become that character to you. And it's really hard to see him as anything else. Of course, that's how you end up with all these child actors who just go, and musicians, or singers. There's not really such thing as a musician, hardly anymore in popular music. Ooh, SST. Not really a proper SST, but as close as I can get to it in the game. Ouch. And, yeah, that's why you end up with all these child actors and singers and stuff going off the damn deep end and acting like fools because they want to break away from the image that they think that they can't escape. Although it always seems to be the ones that shouldn't have anywhere near as much trouble getting away from the original image that they had that go the most off the deep end. So roll up. 1, 2, only 2 count. Yeah, I wish I had more and better stories about watching Axl Rotten matches, but you know that's really, like I said, that's the tragedy of his career, is that he never was given a chance to be anything more than a mid-card tag team guy, except for that one bloody flash in the sun with that feud with Ian. I don't know. Kind of sad. Unfortunate. I might be trying to get another finisher here. There's another exploder. For pin 1, 2, only 2 count. And they're down here right in front of me here, right next to me here at the announcer's table. Oh! Big headbutt sends Axl to the floor. Only 2 count. I'll say, that'd suck if Axl lost his own tribute match. Although I suppose he'd probably see it if he could and go, nah, that figures. Typical story of my life. Ooh. Big headbutt followed up by a DDT. And he's got the lead pipe. But takes a low blow. Ooh, and just got knocked the fuck down. Ow. Lead pipe to the legs. Irish whip. Ooh, knee to the gut. And just smashed him with a stop sign. And takes another low blow. Gets caught. Irish whip. And gets run over. Big clothesline. Pin. 1, 2. Only 2 count. Oddly enough, Ian not bleeding. Axl's been bleeding throughout the majority of the match, I think. Ian stubbornly refusing to bleed. That isn't very rotten of you, Ian. This is an Axl versus Ian match. You're supposed to be bleeding. So, I don't know. Just try and call the match, I guess. I guess I can bitch about this a little bit. How hard is it to put a subroutine in an AI that if there's already the maximum number of weapons in the ring that the game is programmed to allow you to bring out, that they won't go for any more. It is one of the most irritating things about this game's AI when it comes to hardcore stuff, is that I finally got it to where I can make the created wrestlers do hardcore stuff, but nothing seems to deal with the fact that they will continuously and repeatedly keep trying to go for weapons, even though it will not let them have another one, because it only lets you go up to 6, and it includes the ring steps as 2 of them. I imagine that limit was put in place for a reason. I have no idea what that reason is. Doesn't really matter. But see, like right here, again. And instead of just backing off and going like, subroutine, weapon not available, carry on. No, just going to keep trying to get another weapon out of the audience that is not available. Stupid. A little bit of lag on the program there. Oh, and double arm, double underhook DDT. And we got a 1, 2, only 2 count. Because the magic numbers in the sky telling us what's happening. And the magic voice and the invisible referee. And here we go again, see? That's what I'm saying. I still would say that this is still the best wrestling game ever made. It's just the simplicity and yet complexity of it. It's so simple to pick up and learn to play that you can just do all sorts of stuff with it in it. It's so much fun to play. The story mode still hasn't been topped. Graphically, obviously, it's old. And I tell you this, one of my ambitions, but with doing AZW, is I want to get enough of a fan base for AZW and make enough money doing AZW to get a license from the company that it used to be, THQ, but as far as I know, they still own the rights to the AKI, the AKI engine, and I want to, and I will do my damnedest, if at all possible, down the line to do this. As I said, I would need enough of a viewer base and enough money coming in to make this happen. But to either license that engine from them in order to make a new game based on it, which people have been waiting for since this one came out, or actually work with the company itself to make that game happen based on AZW. So, I mean, I have a lot of ideas that I would love to have implement, and that is what you want to see from an Axel and Ian match. Damn sledgehammer being thrown at a dude on the apron and knocking his ass down. That is brutal. Oh, and the big DDT again. Spins him over, and 1, 2, only 2 count. But yeah, just right off the bat, I would want to get in touch, all the various indie wrestlers. I would want to try and get a partnership going with NJPW so I could have an official game with official, licensing and stuff. And maybe some of the other Japanese companies, maybe Mexican companies, and European companies, because I would want to base it off the PC. With a PC game, it's a 2 count there. A PC game with this engine, you'd have a huge amount of space for wrestlers, and of course maybe even be able to port it into consoles. Although that would probably be prohibitively expensive. The appeal to me of doing it on the PC is that you can do it a lot cheaper to start with, and then if it makes enough money, could try to get it out on consoles too. You know, it's not really about the money for me. I mean, obviously I would want to make money. I mean, anybody who claims, oh, I don't want to make money at all, is either insane or an idiot. But I love this game and this engine, and there Axel finally gets his 3 count and wins the match. Good, brutal, hardcore match. And why the hell this Axel Rotten tribute match has turned into, hey, I have all these ideas, I don't know, I'm sorry. That's not what I intended. It just got into my head and I started talking about it. But, you know, this is all for stuff that would be way the hell down the line. I'm not going like, start giving me money right now. No. Just do what you can, share the videos, like the videos, help the, you know, AZW become a thing on YouTube, and that alone will be what you can do to possibly see a brand new version of a wrestling game with that game engine, the AKI engine made, hopefully. If they won't license it or can't because they don't actually have the original coding or anything in their vaults or wherever they would keep it anymore, then the backup goal would be to put together a team and recreate it from scratch with our own improvements and modifications and updates and stuff. But again, that's not the point of this video. It's just something that popped into my head, so I decided I'd talk about it a little bit since I wasn't really able to get into the swing of doing a play-by-play there. So yeah, just, you know, if you'd like to see that happen somewhere down the line, just, you know, support AZW here on YouTube. That's all you have to do for now. Because, as I said, this is going to be something that would have to be, once everything's really well established and there's enough revenue coming in to show that it can be done, that there's an audience to support it, and that people would still like a new version or a new wrestling game based off of that engine. I know there's a lot of fans of the AKI engine out there, but, you know, proving it to a company or having enough support to actually put together a team and do it, put a team together myself and have, you know, us do it, you know, that's two different things. So, you know, that's just, like I said, something for down the line, one of my ambitions with AZW. And of course, in some small ways, keeping some of the guys alive, and, you know, like Axel and Chris Candido and some of the ones who have retired, spreading the word on things like NJPW to fans here in the States and elsewhere that perhaps that have never heard of them. Some of the indie wrestlers that maybe the only company you've ever seen is that company, or maybe one of the ones that got bought by them, and you're not aware that there isn't, and actually is, an entire world of pro wrestling out there for you to explore outside of the mainstream. And I just want to kind of, you know, bring that to you in my own little way. And of course, as I said in one of the earlier videos of AZW, I've always had the ambition of running my own wrestling promotion. In a way, this allows me to do it. So there you go. And since this has been a really long video already, and I've just been rambling for the last 5 minutes or whatever, I'm so sorry about that. But, you know, shit pops in your head and you gotta go with it sometimes. So thanks very much for watching. This has been AZW and Ryan Acidheads Murphy on commentary. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.